Have you ever worried that maybe your music sounds like everybody else's? Music Business Worldwide said recently that 120,000 songs are uploaded per day to Spotify. It is a very crowded market, to say the least. So how do you stand out? How do you make your music unique? In this video, I'm gonna give you 3 tips for developing your own unique compositional voice. If you're new here, my name is Marcus. I am a composer and a producer. I write music for film and TV. I scored Lady in the Lake for Apple TV. I wrote the music for Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul for NBC Universal. I'm director of Southside Symphony. On this channel, I kind of like talk about some of the cool projects I worked on, kind of give you like insight into how I'm thinking about things, answer all questions, and just give you general tips for like working as a creative. So let's jump right into the tips. The first one that I'm gonna give you is counterintuitive. I'm gonna say lean into your influences. And I know you're thinking like, hey Marcus, like that's kind of the whole point. It's like, I don't want to sound like my influences. I want to sound like me. How do I sound like me? And counterintuitively, like leaning into your influences is what like over time helps you to sound like you, because like no one is gonna have the same exact influences as you. No one was listening to the same exact music you did growing up. That's one of the things I like about music, right? Is that like no matter, like everybody I meet, no matter who, no matter where, they know something about music that I don't. They've heard something that I didn't. Their mom cleaned the house listening to something that my mom didn't listen to. You know what I mean? So lean into your own influences and like don't be discouraged about like at the beginning like those influences being obvious. Like all of the greats are like this. If you listen to early Beethoven, you can really hear like that like Haydn type of sound. If you listen to early Brahms, like a lot of people call Brahms' First Symphony Beethoven's 10th Symphony, like you can really hear those influences in a really obvious way. But there's always just like a little flair of something new. Like in Beethoven, you see that, like, even though his early stuff was like influenced, you know, the Mozarts, I mean, I should have said, but like you hear those early influences in it. There's always like a little bit of Beethoven, that little fire in there. And it's gonna be the same for you. You're gonna sound like some of your influences started out, but like eventually you write enough music and it's like, okay, what's the commonality here? Like what's the common thing between all of these different pieces? And spoiler, that common thing is you. I kind of alluded to it, but like my second tip is just like write a lot of music. Like however much music you're writing, write 3 times as much. And what this is gonna do is this is just gonna kind of get you talking. Like if you were trying to find your voice as a speaker, what would we say to do? Well, speak a lot, right? Like just speak and keep going, and eventually the you is gonna come out. Writing is the same way. It's like, write this music, write as much as you can, be writing constantly. And again, that commonality, that's gonna be you. The third tip that I'm gonna give, this is going to be an ongoing process. You're never gonna be done with it. It's not like, oh, I found it. This is me, this is my voice. Like your voice is gonna change over time, right? Like I imagine, you know, if you went back and you read your journals from like middle school, the things that you cared about, the person that you were, like it's very different from the stuff you care about now, right? Like maybe, and your taste, especially your artistic taste is much different. At least I would hope so. So I would say like give yourself the grace in that like you're never going to be done with this. Your voice is always going to be evolving and changing with time. I hope you got some value from this. Lastly, I would say like it can be really beneficial to work with a private instructor because they can kind of like introduce you to music that you might not know, and that can kind of like bring out elements of it. For me, I went to UCLA and got my PhD. And that was like the most helpful things that I had while I was there, was working with some of the professors. They would see me kind of like writing like, oh, here's some counterpoint in a way that doesn't follow the linear rules. Like, oh, well, you might like this orchestra. You might want to check out these orchestral pieces because these composers explored that in a unique way, and that kind of helped finding their voice. So if you're interested, right now I'm having a limited number of one-on-one lessons, links in the description, but you can also just like ask me any questions you have here. I'm happy to do this. Make sure you subscribe and talk to you next time.